All right, so what are we going to talk about today? I told you we're going to talk about the brain. Big thing that I am into is you getting skills that you can immediately put to some use. Okay, so all the things we're going to be talking about today, you'll get to practice them, and I expect you to start using them. How many of you watched that cartoon? How many of you watched some cartoon where they were in somebody's brain, and then there was jealousy, and then there was anger, and there was fear, and at different points they took the dashboard and controlled this girl? Anybody seen the cartoon? Got kids? Hey, right, okay. So those of you who haven't seen it, it gives you an analogy that what is going on inside of somebody is controlling what is happening on the outside. Period. Now, how many people in here have a brain? Now, we never said how many people use it. We just said how many people have got it. All right, so everybody has got a brain. Okay, so everybody take your hands, put them on your head. Okay, the fact that you could do that, your brain was in motion. And it was thoughts that made that happen. But those thoughts are so instinctive, you didn't think about it, that you actually had to think about it. Do you get that? All right, so proof and pudding, put your hands down. Your thoughts make you do stuff. That was just your proof, right? Your thoughts make you do stuff. So what do you do with teams when you want them to do better stuff? What do you do with people when you want them to do different stuff? You've got to help them change their thinking, period. And you've got to get them to change their thinking so much it's instinctive thinking that they don't even realize they're doing it. Just like when you put your hands on your head, you don't know how you told your brain exactly that you wanted to move that hand to go to your head, right? The only time it gets difficult is when there's been brain trauma. So if somebody has a stroke, for instance, you have a major car accident, you've scarred a part of your brain, you go through physiotherapy, right? So you can slowly learn how to reconnect your brain to all your motor skills, because it's no longer instinctive. Something broke. Something got scarred. Everybody got that basic idea, right? That's the facts. That's the science behind it. So how are we going to use the science to help us with our communication and help us make the whole world want to be agile? Let's talk about it. All right, we've got to go the other way. All right. So let me ask you, when you think brain, what do you see? So I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes. You got big sheets. On the top of the sheet, I want you to write brain. Okay, you got a big sheet? The chart, sorry, let's call it the chart. The chart. On the top of the chart, I want you to write the word brain. Okay? All right, I want you to write the word brain, and then I want you to put down everything that you, look at the word specifically, everything that you see when you think of the word brain. What do you see when you think of the word brain? You got 3 minutes to write it down. You have great penmanship. Thoughts, emotions, feelings. Cool. What do you guys see? Convoluted. I like that. Soft tissue. Okay. Learning machine. Ooh, that's nice. Learning machine. Like that. Okay. Innovate. Senses. Logic. How about you guys? What do you guys see? Let's see. Portions. Protected. Fizz. Interesting. Fizz. When you see the brain, I've never thought about fizz. Fizz, okay. What do you guys think? Mouse. Memories, okay. Because they like to do experiments on mice, obviously, right? Skull, intelligence, actions, okay, mine. All right, great. So you see in the room, when we think of the word brain, we hear brain, we all see, note that, we all see different things, right? Just from a word. Hold that thought, take it, float it like a balloon, and let's just keep it hovering over the tables. Okay? Everybody, did you float it? Like, float the thoughts like a balloon? Hover. Okay, good. All right. So then that leads me to the whole idea, can the brain talk? How many people in here think the brain can talk? Say that again? Always voices here? Okay, all right, cool. All right. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So how does it do it, though, is the key. How does the brain actually give us language? Right? So there's two parts of the brain that work to give us language. Let's call it brain geography. All right? So let's go back to school on the brain just a little bit. Let's give you some background. So the brain is made up of actual gray matter. That's kind of like its color. It's gray, right? And if you've ever felt one, it's kind of sticky. Kind of sticky, right? And we can get into the reason why it's sticky, but one of those things, the stickier the brain, the better the brain in a certain regard, right? Because that means it's producing enough fluid to keep all those thoughts that you need going around it. Right? So, next, it's said to be 75% water. How many people here drink at least 3 liters of water a day? Those of you who don't need to get on with it, right? It'll help you get smarter. We need water. Your water is 75%. You're not giving it any water, your brain's going to dry up. All right? It's not a good thing. Next, it's supposedly 60% fat. How many of you are on a lean diet? So maybe we want to rethink some of that, right? And find the fact that we want to eat. If we're eating for our brain, we're going to eat a little bit different, right? So fat, we need it. Next, the skin weighs twice as much as your brain. So the stuff that's covering us weighs twice as much. I love this part. The working part of your brain is 100 billion or so neurons. Now, neurons, consider them the container of any one of your habits or thinking patterns. Container, right? And you've got 100 billion of them. But you got some great foot soldiers, and I like these ones. These glial cells, for every single neuron in your brain, you have 500 million maybe of those little glial cells going around trying to protect every single one of your neurons. Because they know how important it is for you as a human to have an active brain that can think. We don't often know how important it is, but they do. And that's biology in motion for you, enabling each one of us to be as amazing as we think we can be. Key, as amazing as we think we can be. Now, since thoughts is everybody's heard this idea of the left and right brain, right? Because we all talk about it. Oh, you're a lefty, you're a righty. Okay, so when you're thinking about the left part of your brain, that in essence is all your logic and recall, right? That's where everything for you to be able to recall information, create facts, etc., is living on the left-hand side of your brain. But when it comes to actual, I have an idea, that's going to be coming from the other side of your brain, the right-hand side. Now, if we go on a little further past that, let's talk about what else is sitting in different places. You have got language centralized on the 70% population on the left-hand side of your brain. So where you thought was just logic, that's where your actual language, not dialect or different countries or culture, but the actual formation of language exists on the left-hand side of your brain. But the ability to make it make sense exists on the right-hand side. So put it this way. If your right-hand side isn't working right, you could just be saying, blue gobble gobble goop boop boop, boop, and I'm trying to say something that doesn't make any sense. They're words, it's language, but the language has no direction. So you need both sides of the brain working together for you to be able to be articulate, right? Because otherwise, if you have the right side working, So you've got the idea of the perceptions, but you've got no language, then all we're going to have is sounds. So both parts of your brain have to work together for us to have language, the way we perceive language. So not just language formed, but language always communicated and language making sense. Now that alone should make you go, oh. Because our judgment calls and biases have said people are left-brained and right-brained, right? But people are both brained to communicate. Which means if you have somebody who you would say is amazingly scientific and they think a certain way, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm just so creative, I can never think like that, would that be true? Question, would it be true? Would it be true? No. Just at this point, you only know how to use your brain in a specific way. But you could learn how to use it differently. Now, if we are agilists, we have to understand that people do what? What do we all do? Continuously improve, right? We continuously improve, we continuously learn, we continuously improve. It's a cycle. So now, if we're going to claim to be we are agile people, we no longer can have a bias of saying people can't improve, or saying people are always going to be X way, or people are always going to be Y way, can we? So right now, we can take that thought and like throw it away, because it has no science to it. It may have tradition to it, and we may say it because we've heard other people say it, but it's not scientifically founded. So the truth is, everybody has the ability to evolve beyond where they are now, in either direction. It's all a matter of choice, okay? So, since we now know that, the two areas that work for you to make this all work, so that you know this when you go out, you can sound really smart when you're with your people at work, all right? The Brocky area is spoken words. That's your left-hand side of your brain. That's where it sits. The Wenke area is where the processing makes it make sense, puts meaning behind your words. So you can take a picture of that. So go ahead, take a picture. Because everybody in here has got a smartphone. So take a picture. So now when you want to make a joke, when you think somebody's not too smart, you go, oh, your Wenke's not working very much for you, is it? It's okay, let me give you some more time. You need more processing time. It's okay, go ahead, go for that. Right? You can now make some educated humor out of it. Okay, everybody got the picture? All right, cool. So let's look now how language has evolved, because that's where we're going to deep dive into. Because we're going to understand how to take language and how to use it to control everything else that we want to control in the same place, okay? So there's this kind of idea of an evolution of language. Two schools of thoughts. There's the idea that thought influences stuff, and then there's the idea that language influences stuff. We don't know who's right or who's wrong necessarily, right? So it's kind of like the idea of the egg before the chicken. Like, well, where did the chicken come from if you didn't have an egg? That's the debates, okay? So you've got lots of scientists who have these different debates. And I've listed them up there, right? So if you want to take a picture of that, you can. So there is the idea that thought determines, influences, right? There's also the idea that language determines and influences. But who's to say exactly which is really right or which is wrong? Go ahead. Oh, that is saying learning reinforcement. Learning reinforcement. Can we switch? I don't know. Can we switch the lights down just a wee bit? Oh, we got nobody to help us. Hold on. Can we switch? Okay, we're going what the thought is. Right? So there's these schools about language. But now that we've understood a little bit more about the brain, we can almost say both are correct, because they work in tandem, right? We got a little bit of pairing going on here. Would you all agree? It's kind of like a pairing thing. All right, so go to your worksheet, and I'd like you to go to page 3 on your worksheet. What do you think is more influential? All right? Now you see I have who and I have what. I want you to think about, in our agile world, the roles and the people we have to deal with, right? When we think about teams. They are sharing sheets because you're going to do this on a big sheet, on Flipchart, right? So, here are some things you're going to look at. Language and thought. What roles do you think in our agile world are more influenced by language? What roles do you think are more influenced by thought? Right? And what stuff in our world, the what, not the people now, so come away from the people, go to stuff. What stuff do you think is influenced by thought, and what do you think is influenced by language? Everybody get that? Everybody understand the ask? So, you are going to, on your flip chart, put down the who's, the roles kind of. Who are the who's? Who are the who's that are influenced more by language? Who are the who's in our world that are influenced more by thought? Right? Thought versus language. The who's and the what's. Like what stuff? What stuff that happens is more influenced by language or by thought? Everybody got that? All right, so you're going to have a slightly deeper discussion about this. So I'm going to give you all of 7 minutes. I'm being very generous, right? But I need you to have some good discussion about this. Yes, this would be thought. The thought section. Used to people being able to have a board each. So, on your big flip chart, write down those 3 things. Write modalities and write the 3 things. Experience, exist, express. Write it down because you're going to need it. A modality will influence an experience, existence, or expression. Everybody got that down? It influences an experience, existence, or expression. Okay? Just write down those 3 words so you don't forget them. Just write them down. Existence and expression. So it expresses those 3 things. Okay? Everybody got those down? Each team has got that down on your sheet? All right, great. Okay, so here are the things that modalities are good at expressing. They're good at expressing a likelihood, a certainty, an ability, permission, obligation, and need, right? So you can use modalities to force this type of thinking, because that's what you're ultimately going to do. You're going to force that type of thinking. So you're going to use a modality for a likelihood, to create certainty for somebody. So, for instance, if you're in a meeting and you can tell everybody's panicked, you probably want to pull a modality out to get everybody to be calm, right? Next, an ability. So when you are, as a Scrum Master, trying to help a team understand they can find a solution, even though they don't think they can, you probably use a modality for that. Right? Permission. Getting permission later. So if I'm having a conversation, I probably want to allude to the fact that they gave me permission even when they didn't. Right? that would be the modality I want to create so that we don't have any issues. Obligation. Well, one of the Scrum values is commitment. So if I want to get a team to buy into commitment, I'm probably going to use a modality to persuade them that way, to make them feel like they're obligated to each other and they're obligated to being accountable and they're obligated to showing up and being there for their team members, right? Because again, if we take the Scrum Master role, and let's take the whole idea of being agile, we can't make anybody do anything, right? So we can't beat them, we can't command them, but we sure can influence. And there are no rules about how much we can talk or how much we can't. True? Does the manifesto say anything about not talking a lot? No. Right? So we can talk. So if we can make our communication extremely intentional, we can take the one thing that we do have and use it very well to get things moving the way we need to get it moving. So let's look at some of them. Here are some modals. Now you will notice, I am sorry, I just picked the wrong color. It looked really good on the keynote. Right? So you have the chance to do may, might, must, can, could, shall, should, will, and would. Right? You can utilize these to force the things we were just talking about. Because these particular verbs don't change. They're firmly put in place, right? So it's not like I talk, she taught, they talked. No. When you use a modality, you have got it bang smack right there. So, thinking about those, take a quick note of those. Take a picture. Everybody on the table, take a quick picture, because I want to go to the other ones. Everybody got it? Everybody on the table got one picture? All right, so now let's go straight to the meat. Brain dialects. There are three main ones that everybody talks about, but in fact there are five. But the three strongest are the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. Let's look a little bit more about what we mean by that. Visual, everybody gets it, you see it, right? Kinesthetic, you touch it. A lot of developers are kinesthetic. Do they not fidget a lot? They're always moving a body part or touching something or biting something, right? So developers are very kinesthetic. Next, auditory digital, voices in your head, right? How many of you talk to yourself on a regular basis? How many of you talk to yourself while you're talking to other people? Few of us do it, right? So it's like you hear somebody say something, you're still saying it back in your head, right? And then you communicate back your response. Those people who are auditory digital, that's their main dialect, they speak slower than everybody else. Because there's a lot of communication they've got to go through before they actually communicate. So when you are looking at people in your teams or business people who speak slower than the rest of their counterparts, no, they're talking to themselves in their head. So when you talk to them, there's going to be certain words you want to use with them. Same thing when you're talking with a kinesthetic. Let's look at some of those words. So auditory is simply hearing. Auditory digital is that person who does the self-talk. So, which is why I got that picture. I'm talking to myself first before I talk to you. That's an auditory digital person. And you'll hear them use expressions like this. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And you'll notice whenever they say that, there's a pause. Think about people you know who use that. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And they're still nodding, and you're like, why are they nodding? There's nothing else going around. But they're nodding to themselves. Okay? Right? This kind of things. Or classic people tell you, I got to think about that. And you know those are people who never make a decision in a moment. Right? You wish they bloody would, but they don't. Right? Because they've got to go away and do this whole self-talk. So if you were talking to a person who's audio digital and you're talking really, really fast and you're really, really energetic and really exciting, you're bothering them because they're having to translate you into their language. That's a lot of work. But if you were talking to an audio digital and you decided to match their pace, communication would, by far, be more effective. See, I've even taken my tone down, right? Whereas my natural pitch is a lot higher, but if I'm talking to an audio digital, I'm going to change my pitch and I'm going to change my speed because I want my communication to be effective, right? So, when you think about, whoops, I'm going to go back one. When you think about words that reside with you, flip on your sheet a second, because let's find out who you guys think you are. You're going to notice there are some words on the bottom. Where do you guys resonate with these words? On the bottom. You're going to see where I said, what words work for you? I'm going to give you guys exactly a couple of minutes just to kind of vote on the words that resonate the most with you. Okay, you guys got all of 1 minute starting now. So if the word resonates with you, put a tick next to it. And then we can count the ticks. Next, I want you to look at this one, where it says, what is your brain dialect? I've got a scoring from 1 to 10, okay, for each of what you think yours is. Now, I'm going to just really quickly go over them. Visual, that's a big easy, right? C. So whenever you're going to communicate, you always use visual words, okay? Kinesthetic, touchy person, right? When you use words, you're always going to use words that symbolize some kind of touch, because that works for you. If you're a plain auditory person, you're always going to use words that have something to do with hearing. Oh, I hear you. Did you hear that noise? Can you hear what they're saying? Did you hear what the news is talking about lately? You'll use those words a lot, okay? But if you're an audio digital, you'll use audio words, but you'll express them slightly differently. So auditory people can speak as fast as visual people do. But auditory digital people will always be the slowest speakers in a room. Always. Okay? Say that again, question. If you wanted to, let me repeat the question. How would you identify an audio digital person? Number one, your easiest one without being intrusive, is paying attention to their talking speed. Right? That's the classic that you can use without anybody feeling like you're being intrusive. Right? Because otherwise you could be asking questions that can make people feel like, okay, hold on a second, whoa, that kind of thing, right? You'll also notice a thing about an audio digital person, they're not the most tactile person in the world. So they will need space, personal space, right? Audio digitals are going to need personal space. So if you get too close to an audio digital, you'll see them take a step back or lean back. Especially if they're in an environment where everybody else is touchy-feely, you'll just see them kind of lean back. And if they actually get physical with you, it will always feel very insincere. They don't mean to be, but that's not how they communicate. So it's like me trying to give you this presentation in Japanese. It'd just be a mess, right? And that's what happens when you're asking somebody to communicate outside of their dialect. It's a mess. Now, you can learn other dialects, right? You definitely can, but it's not your dialect, so it's a lot of work. So if I go into a meeting with an audio digital, when I come out, I'm tired. Right? I got to go watch a movie. I got to get loud with somebody. right? Because I got to get some energy back. They just drained me. So whenever you're not talking in your dialect, it's hard. Your kids, when your kids are at school learning, if you've got a highly kinesthetic child and they're in lecture after lecture after lecture after lecture, when they come home, they crash because they had to learn all that deep information outside of their language zone. All they did all day was interpret. That takes a lot because their brain is on overload. It's working really, really, really hard to make all those things happen. So, thank you. Here's your classic auditory. That sounds about right. Oh, that rings a bell. Oh, yep, you're coming through loud and clear. Can you tune into what I'm saying? Can you get into my zone? Right? You've heard these kind of people use this kind of language. All right, so here's where I'm going to challenge you guys now. Now you've got the chart. I want you to rate each other. Okay, so you're going to have to pair up now. Everybody's going to have to parry. Try your best to make a pair. If not, be three. Right? And then I want you to write down what you think you're talking to. So write the person's name down. Don't tell the person. So you can't tell the person what you believe you are, but let them guess. Okay? So you guys are going to have a conversation about Agile. Your conversation will be about the 4 values. Everybody know the 4 values in here? Come on, you all should. Be embarrassed if you don't. All right. So 4 values. First one is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Second one is working software over comprehensive documentation. Third one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Fourth one, responding to change over following a plan. Have a conversation about it for 4 minutes with a pair. Let's see who you reckon you're talking to. It's backwards. That way backwards or forwards? Right? So it puts a whole new twist on listening. How many of you realize that some people have more than one? Yeah? Right? Because you can have a dominant and have another one. Right? So you don't have to be all one. You could be more than one. But one normally plays more dominant than the other. Okay. So I'm interested. How many visuals do I have in the room? Did everybody guess their partner already, right? Were you right or were you wrong? Who was wrong? Oh, you did a group, so, okay. All right, so let's do the big reveal. Okay, let's do the reveal. Okay, so now pay attention, watch what everybody is. Who would consider themselves a visual first? That visual is definitely your dominant. Okay? Did I have it? Be proud. Be proud. Be high. Be high. I'm a visual. Make them high. Good. All right, so you can see who was the visual on your table. Okay, who are your auditories? Who's auditories in here? Okay, all right, table observe, let's see if you were right. Okay, how many people in here are audio digital? Okay, all right. How many people are kinesthetic? Okay, yeah. Yeah, definitely, okay. Like, for instance, these two here, I was watching them, right? I can't watch the whole lot of you, right? So while she was listening to him, she constantly had to be touching herself in some way and playing with something, right? The whole time. She's paying attention, but she's still touching herself. Kinesthetic. Him, while he's talking, his hands are going, and even while his hands are touching, they make sure they touch each other at some point, right? That's kinesthetic. Did you see that? So it's little things. So sometimes people who you would claim, oh, they're so animated, they're so kinesthetic, is what they are. Why there's all this, they've got to have a movement. The people who always, when they're sitting down, do that thing with their foot, right? Not nervous, not anxiety, kinesthetic. They do. Here is a really good point. Different situations make people take on different languages, right? If we're in a professional environment, very highly hierarchical, you are not going to go around being touchy-feely, right? Because it's not the environment, right? For instance, if you're in the military, you are not going to be touchy-feely. So you're going to find something for you to do to satisfy your touch, right? So it may be your pen is always tapping, or you're always fidgeting with your pen in your pocket, right? Or you're a clicker, right? Oh, yes, I've got a couple of those. They're really cool, right? You'll find other things, or you may become an avid skin picker, right? There's several people I know who, when you look at them, you're like, oh my God, what are you doing to your skin? Where's your skin gone, right? But if you look at the environments they've worked in, extremely stuffy, you've got to be just this way, but they still have to touch. So you'll find a way because you need it. It's like a basic survival technique. You've got to speak your language, and it's how you're wired, right? So if you understand this, it's going to make you so very effective. Now let's put it to work. Look in your sheet. You will see I've got a vision template, the traditional Agile vision template. You guys see it? Everybody see that traditional at the back? Okay, so I am going to ask you now, here is your assignment. You guys are going to put together a vision statement about Agile, getting somebody to be convinced to want to do it, right, in all of the 4 languages. Yeah, you got to practice, right? So visual. You assume your customer's visual, so what's the language you're going to use? So I'm going to give you a little help. I'm not going to be mean. I'm going to help you out. Because I put some of the words up to make it easy. So take a picture. Here are some kinesthetic words. Because you're using language. This has got to be how you're going to communicate, is with language. Okay, so make sure everybody on the table's got kinesthetic. Awesome. Now let's give you auditory. Okay. Visual. Everybody got that? All right. Now, you may find, so let me just throw at this so if you bump into it, you don't go, oh my God, Lizzy didn't tell us about that. What the hell is that they're doing? You may find some people also have a sub-language, what we call olfactory or gustatory, right? Now, if they're gustatory, they're kind of an eating person. It's all about food, right? It's about taste, right? And if they're olfactory, it's all about smells. Now, some people have trained their nose, right? So their nose registers how it is they feel. So when they feel a certain thing, they may smell a certain thing. They associate it, right? There's an association from. So when you think about aromatherapy, it's to create different states of being, right? So it trains the nose to register a feeling. So if you smell lavender, you feel relaxed, less anxiety. If you want to be energetic, you're smelling ginger or cinnamon, right? That says, let's get high energy. So there are people whose olfactory and gustatory are very, very strong, and they could communicate that way too. So watch out for that. All right? Okay, so use the 3, audio, visual, and kinesthetic, just the 3 because we don't have that much time. Use those 3 to create Agile vision statements to communicate to those 3 dialects. Okay? And we'll be walking around to help you. Yeah, you can use those words or words like them. Yes, yes, exactly. You're using the words. Everybody pause a second. The only thing you have to communicate with these people are words, right? Because it's language you've got to use. So you've got to take the words that will communicate to that dialect of brain. So if you're talking to a visual, you've got to use all visual words. If you're talking to an auditory person, you've got to use auditory words. All right? So you've got to take the language that is going to trigger the thoughts for them. That's what you're doing. You're taking the language to trigger their thoughts. So a visual person wants to think in pictures. So you've got to paint pictures with words. An auditory person wants to think in sound. So the words have got to create the sound. The kinesthetic person wants to think in touch. So you've got to use words that allow them to feel touching. Got it? So it's language that you're going to use now to create those thoughts. Yes, you're going to create an agile vision. Right? So you guys are all creating an agile vision now for these people. Effective communication. We will all need it in our life. We can all have it. Would you agree with that? Right? We all need effective communication. We all can have it. It might take some practice. It could change your life. Did you see what I used here in this communication to close out the class? What did I use? I used modalities. Because the modality overrides everybody's dialect. So by using the modality, I have created now thoughts in your mind, which you will interpret in your own dialect to mean what you need it to mean. But what you're interpreting is a state. We all need it in life, effective communication. We all can have it in life, effective communication. It might take some practice to have effective communication. It could change our lives if we have effective communication. So, key thing now, let me ask you this. What is it that you think drives somebody? Language or thought? Both. And now you have something in your toolkit whereby you can leave this room far more effective at communication than you have been to this point. And I expect you to evolve it, do more stuff with it, experiment with it, right? Experiment it with friends, experiment with family members, right? And see how much more effective your communication will be, and see how much more responsible you can now be with your communication. Get across your message. You may have to think about it a little bit more before you give a message, but at least now it will be effective. Okay? So thank you all so much.